This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19 and a half years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella windows. We're excited to announce that our first live event is now on sale on our website. On May 16th at 5 o'clock in the North House in Minneapolis, the Curious Builder is going to be hosting Brad Levitt, Nick Schiffer, Tyler Grace, and Morgan Molitor to a panel discussion about networking, marketing your brand and your business, and all things related to the Contractor Coalition, which is coming to Minneapolis on May 15th through May 19th. If you're looking at leveling up your business, I'd highly recommend attending. For those local here in Minnesota, it's right in your backyard. This would be an amazing time to network with some of the nation's best builders with the best building practices around. Join us for the Contractor Coalition, or if you just want to be there for one night and enjoy the networking and meet these superstars from around the country, again, that is going to be May 16th at 5 o'clock at the North House. Tickets can be bought at the contractorcoalitionsummit.com as well as the curiousbuilderpodcast.com.
Well, the thing that we just ran into here this fall again is no builders like to put heat in their house until all of a sudden the sheetrock's out. And what I found through experience is that wood from your framing is still wet. So we come in, sheetrock it, you put the heat on, and then I come tape 2 days later, right?
Yeah, I bet the humidity is outstanding in there.
The house looks pretty nice once it's primed. But come about this time of the year, 6 weeks later, all of a sudden those studs have started to shrink back and they're pulling the screws in with them. And now there's screw pops all over the place. And the builder's like, what's going on? I'm like, I told you we needed to let it sit, or the manager didn't say anything, right? And that's, again, where that communication comes in. You need proper site conditions as well in order to get a proper outcome.
Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I'm joined with Randy Jonell from Minnesota Custom Drywall. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
I am excited to have you in. We got to spend some time on the trail last year because I'm an avid runner and I didn't realize how regular a runner you are. And so we got to spend some time chatting business, crypto, and running. And then I said, well, now you have to come on the podcast.
And here I am today.
Here you are. Well, we'll talk about all those things. Why don't we introduce you to the audience? Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you became the owner of Minnesota Custom Drywall and kind of your journey through entrepreneurship.
Well, probably like a lot of us, I wasn't the most well-behaved child. And
it's almost like a prerequisite to being an owner, by the way.
Yeah, or like to be falling into the construction industry. But about 18, 19, my parents said I could either move out, or get a job. And the easier option was obviously to get a job. So I had a neighbor that worked for a local drywall and painting company, and he got me an interview, and I ended up getting hired as the general laborer. So I went around and I scraped and swept floors after drywall production. And
super glamorous.
Very glamorous. But, I was making consistent money. I was happy about that. And after about a year or so, I had this little thought, this is going nowhere. So I remember going to my boss at that time and asking, how do I move into learning an actual skill set? And at that time, they employed hangers and drywall sanders, but they subbed all the taping out. So I ended up chatting with the hangers, and they got 40 hours a week, $1 an hour raise a year. And then talking with the sanders, they got as many hours as they wanted, raises based on production, how quick they can move through things. So I ended up jumping into the sanding realm and got trained in there. And I lasted about 2 years. I hit the top of the pay scale at that company. I didn't realize at that time that I had something that was called a work ethic. And when it came to break, it was basically I ate a sandwich as quick as I could and I ran back into the job site.
Were you highly motivated by money, drive? Like, what if you could go back now and look at it? What do you think that drive came from?
I don't like sitting around. So I always joke you couldn't give me $50 an hour to stand on the street and hold a sign that says slow and says stop. Like there's not enough action to it. And I'm a guy that tends to want to race from one spot to the next for whatever reason. So then I put in my 2-week notice and I said, I'm going off on my own. And I didn't really know what that entailed. I'm not what many people might call a thinker. I'm more of a doer. I just make decisions and then figure it out as I go. He dangled a carrot that said if I trained in my replacement, he would give me all of his extra work. And so I actually hung on for about 7 additional months, trained in my replacement, and January 1st, 2006 was the first official day I was working for myself. And
was the name of the company Minnesota Custom Drywall?
It was not. It was Minnesota Sanding LLC. And because I just sanded sheetrock as a subcontractor. And at that time, the phone books were still relevant. Today, they're not. But I remember calling through like 4 pages of the phone book, and one person gave me a job out of probably 60 to 80 phone calls.
And were these obviously builders you were calling, homeowners? Who were you
Other
calling?
drywall contractors.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up getting the extra work from the company that I had left. And I remember my first job I did on my own. It took me 12 hours down in Lakeville. It was a townhome. And I remember getting that first check. It was like $496. And I was like, wow, that was a lot of money that I just made in one day. I don't think I always realized the tax implications and stuff that, when you're 21, you don't realize maybe a lot of the mechanics of running a business. And I always joke in this world that I'm an uneducated alcoholic because I never went to college. And we can get into that, but recovery is a big part of my life today. But I don't know what I don't know. And I've never really been one of a researcher. I just go and do it. So what ended up happening is that first year on my own, I just basically was a sole proprietor, did my own work. And eventually word of mouth started to percolate because I'm joyful. I talked to other people on job sites. And next thing you know, I picked up another drywall contractor and I picked up another one. So I ended up hiring a guy. And then it was just him and I for a number of years. And then I tried scaling past that. We'd ended up with 3-4 guys and we were just sanding sheetrock. It ended up getting to the point where I was sanding about 800 to 1,200 sheets of sheetrock a day, which is one of your homes is on average 400 sheets. So we were doing about 3 of those homes a day.
Wow.
So I had a pretty good operation there.
As a company, not as an individual.
Not as an individual, yes, as a company. And then in 2009, things kind of skidded to a halt. I have a highly addictive personality, and I had to go away to camp for a month. And then when I got back out, I wasn't as motivated in business. And what I mean by that is my focus at that time was on sobriety and recovery. But as a addictive personality, I get a little bit of time under my belt, and all of a sudden my attention and focus went directly back into the business. And I was interested in continuing to grow it. I was very motivated by money at that time. I thought that was really important. I also thought that that was how I defined my own self-worth due to low self-esteem. Today it's a lot better, but that was kind of the motivating drive back then. And so about 2012, 2013, I got 8-9 guys. I'm trying to scale past that, but all of a sudden my business model needed to change. Now, I didn't recognize that at that time. All I knew is I was working 16, 17, 18 hours every single day. I was the guy, been in jobs, scheduling them, running them, following up, delivering equipment. I mean, I was doing everything. So,
Did you recognize burnout at that time, or were you not really burned out?
I wasn't burned out. And part of that was the drive to succeed based on my own definition of success at that time.
Would you say you were energized by it? I mean, was it?
Yes.
I assume it's probably exciting times.
It's addicting. Yeah. Like if you end up getting burnt out, you're not as engrossed or thrilled about what you're doing. Not that there wasn't multiple events that were challenging. but you don't know what you don't know, which I've already addressed. So like, I don't know how to structure a business. I know how to follow up. I know how to work, and I know how to get things done. I'm creative in problem solving. So we eventually, my best friend offered to come on board and help structure the business for growth. And at that time, it was probably 8 years ago. So 2014, 2015, right in there, all of a sudden we started to experience hockey stick growth. I mean,
who was that came on?
My best friend, Paul Kozlowski. The other thing that I want to just quickly touch base back on is when you're growing a business, and again, you don't know what you don't know, you don't realize the cash that's required to fund that growth. And one of the kind of the funnier stories, I remember my wife was working for a land developer at the time. And I'm doing payroll. I'm using those printed sheets with a ruler for doing payroll checks for withholdings and all of that stuff. And I'm like, you need to quit. You got to come help me. And she's like, Randy, your credit card bill came today. I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you know how much it is? I'm like, yeah, 32 grand. Like all proud because I'm like, we're doing stuff. We're growing. And I remember she's like, well, do you know how much is in your business account? And I'm like, 20. She's like, and how much is payroll next week? And I'm like, around 15. And she just kind of looked at me. And I'm like, don't worry about it. She's like, where's the money going to come from? And I'm like, it'll just be there when we need it. And she's like, where's it coming from? I'm like, the mailbox. And I tell that story because it really relates to how I operated in business. I just went for it. I needed people behind me to help structure and plan it. And I don't have that component. So it was a good match. Eventually she came on board, helped the business, and then Paul helped structure it also for the growth from, call it 10 people to today, between subcontractors and employees, we're probably at about 80 people in the field a day.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Manage in particular. Now, and let's go back to the very beginning here. So Paul, you brought him on as a partner, or how did you entice Paul, and what was Paul doing? What was his expertise that he had, other than he was your best friend, to really help you, scale the company?
The elevator pitch I usually give on Paul is that he graduated as a lawyer, worked for the steel industry. The Red Cross picked him off, and he was in charge after 9/11 of distributing blood throughout the entire country. And at that time, he found a loophole in the industry of tracking and tracing implants and human tissues in hospitals. So they wrote a software, gotten patented, regulated, and set it up on a SaaS model. What Paul did was structure a business where...
Hang on one second. Well, I'm not familiar with what is a SaaS model.
Subscription as a service. So every user pays X per month to use.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
And he structured it where nobody called him. He structured it so that he built a business that he wasn't an active component of. He had become owner. He is much older than I am. So he's built businesses his whole life. And I became best friends with him through doing drywall repairs at his house. And I'd go over and chat with him about business and stuff he was a mentor to me. And he came when I was discussing all the challenges I was experiencing. He offered to come on board and help structure the growth and stuff for an equity stake after a certain number of years. So, and that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Wow, that's amazing. And your wife now is a partner as well.
Yep.
Now, is it more than she's obviously your wife? That is also
Yes.
your partner. Did you make? I think my wife, now that I come to think of it, pretty much owns Mark Williams Custom Homes and the Curious Builder, but she got that partnership through marrying me. So
Yeah.
It obviously set this up, I assume, directly through the company. You had her come work for you.
Yeah. Eventually, or at first, she's working with me as my wife, right? But she has an accounting background, is very good with numbers, and she's very black and white. And in a business that is growing, you need those rigid people that this is the rule or this is the law and this is how it needs to be followed. We're kind of like, I guess I'll say myself, in the field as you're growing, you're like, well, we'll deal with that later. We just need to get the guy on board in order to get through the work. So she was a pivotal part of the growth. Without her, it would not have happened. The other thing with working with your wife is it causes a lot of challenges because you don't always see eye to eye. There's differences of opinion. And what I found is I do have an ability to shut things off. I think a lot of people struggle with that in the evenings. So if there's an issue during the day with your partner, it could carry over into the evening. And I'd be like, well, why are you still upset? Like, that has to do with work. And she's like, well, I can't just turn it off. And I had to learn that, like, people operate different than I do. And so without her, yeah, it would not have gotten to where it got to.
Was there a point where she came in? Obviously, I mean, this is more semantics really, but just kind of curious. We've had guests on the show, husband and wives, partners. We've had brothers on and family members, things like this. In this scenario, it was a little bit different because it was you solo, then you brought on Paul, and then you brought on your wife. Did you have to, I mean, once you have partners, you kind of have to run things by them, or was Paul's equity stake non-voting, meaning you could bring on any other partners without really his say so, as long as it didn't, you didn't exceed his equity share? Meaning, like, did you have to run by him that you were bringing your wife on?
No, at the same time that we brought Paul on, I brought my wife
brought
on.
him on at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, both those people were instrumental into the formation of what Minnesota Custom Drywall came today. I jokingly will say I was the energy behind it. They were the brains behind it.
And you need both.
You absolutely do. And in some regards, you need a guy that's going to leap and just take that chance and have other people kind of figure out how to put it together after you get the work. I mean, I have a great ability to get work. I didn't have a great ability to then handle the amount of work that was coming in. And that caused enough problems in and of itself. When you're understaffed and have too much work, it's just, it's kind of a nightmare at times.
Well, growth, I'm not sure I've been a great growth mindset here. Just checking my mic here. One of the things that I've struggled with myself is exactly what you're talking about. I think you and I actually, I think that's what we bond over when we go running is, in some ways you and I have very similar personalities on many levels. And I've benefited when those around me can help support it with a structure so I can be good at what I'm good at, and they can really excel at what they're good at. And I think as a team, no one person is the best at everything. So
No.
When you realize that, it seems like that your company really took off after that.
Yeah, I think everybody has different skill sets. And the one thing that people need to do is learn to let go and trust the other people and have the humility to listen. I think that at times I really struggled with getting advice, or someone might give you advice, but you wouldn't really listen. And what I found is that it took people that I really respected to give me opinions and advice, and then I would listen. If I didn't tend to respect you as much, I wasn't listening as well. And I'm also a guy that you told me the stove's hot, but it's not going to burn me. And then I have to go and experience. Like, I wish we learned better through just listening versus thinking that we're something special, and that since you couldn't figure out, obviously I could, but we both got burned. So it's hot.
It seems to me, and I think there's a lot of benefit to stories and even this podcast listening, but I think it has there's more depth to what you listen to when you've experienced and you can relate to it, right? I know that's an obvious statement, but that being said, I have a brother-in-law who is considering to get his MBA, and he's about 2 years removed from school. And I said, I think I would recommend you wait a little bit, and to go right into the MBA track. I've just heard from those that have gone through it before and got it later. It was more meaningful because they could apply their actual business, acumen, the things that they're just the things that they're experiencing every single day to their education. And I related to recently, I had read a book, and then I heard someone talk about it. Well, man, my level of understanding was so much deeper about what they were shocking. And so it's so funny when you have gone through something and then you hear someone speaking about it, you're like, it really just means different things. And you kind of wish you could go through life without some of these difficult experiences, but unfortunately you really can't. To some level, how would you comment on that? Because I don't think you have to burn your hand on everything in order to understand something's hot. But that being said, there's a lot of benefit to kind of losing a little bit in life and having difficult experiences, because you can't really grow without those losses.
You can't really grow without failure. And you can't really be afraid to fail. I think life is about experiences, good and bad. They help define who we are, how we think, and what our value systems are. I also think that evolves over time based on what our experience is and what failures we have had. When you fail, there's nothing wrong with it. You got to get back up and try again. You only lose when you stop getting back up. Um, I jokingly also say, I've been kicked in the nuts a lot. And you're lucky that I have been, because I've learned a lot and I figured out a good way through this. What I found even in my own team and stuff is I'm driven a lot by efficiencies. I like to try and, because I move quick, I like to try and find what's the fastest and best way to do things. And I've developed pretty good systems. What I found in training guys is they agree it's good. And, you spend a week with them out in the field going through it all. And then you come back 2 weeks later and half of it's different, because they have to add their own flavor or their own flair to it. And part of that's just their personality and what people are. But it's fun, watching people grow. It's fun being involved. And I mean, a lot of people that have been with us for a long time. So that's been pretty rewarding as well.
I mean, that's kind of amazing. And I think this will definitely, those listening that have experienced the drywall, and you and I talked a little bit about this offhand because it's not meant to be an insult, but people, when you talk to homeowners and builders, and let's say you're selling your home, people come in, you're like, look at how amazing my cabinets are. And look at my wood floor.
Look at the tile.
Look at the tile. It's exquisite. Look at the craftsmanship. Look at my architecture.
Yeah.
In my 20 years of building and life, I have never had anybody ever say, come here, look at how awesome my drywall is. Look at how great, is my drywall not the best ever?
Yep.
And yet drywall is held to this crazy high standard. It's akin to paint, but in some ways I'd say it's worse than paint, because at least paint gets some credit. It's almost like drywall is great if it's done perfectly. And if it's anything less than perfect, my drywall stinks.
Yep.
Speak to that in terms of, am I the only one that feels that way?
I think a lot of people do.
Why is there such animosity towards drywall? Why do we dislike it so much?
I think people expect that it's going to be a perfect product, and it's not, because a lot of it is finished by hand. The other issue that you run into today that I don't think was as much of an issue in the past is the amount of natural light that's entering a home. Windows used to be 2 feet off the ceiling. We used to have knockdown or popcorn ceiling finishes. Nowadays, your windows are going all the way up to the ceiling. They're facing west, and that sunlight's running right across that ceiling. And when you tape sheetrock, there's a recessed edge on what we call a flat, the horizontal. You can bury the tape in the mud, and that you can make completely flat because of the recess. But anywhere where I got a horizontal joint, it's proud now. As soon as I put joint tape on that, it's proud. And my mud is just going to float that out. But when the light catches it, you're going to see shadowing, because no matter what, it's not smooth. I've just floated that hump out over 36 inches or something. I like to try to, and I hate to put it this way, but it's a competitious industry, right? So what you are paying for in a lot of sense is a 90% perfect job. There's always going to be something, depending on the light, depending on how close you look, just there's something.
Time of day, all those things.
Right.
Yep.
The lighting in the house. If you want to get to like that 99, you basically are doubling the 90% price. It's that much more touch up and time and lasering in things. Production guys are not grabbing a laser to set corner bead. They're not. So you got that aspect of it. And you've also got, the artisan home tours and stuff like that. I always like, we get asked for credits from builders, because they're paying to be in the show. And the whole philosophy is, if we get more work, you get more work. That's how the wheels spin. I don't like giving those credits on the front end, because typically on an artisan home tour, we get called back more often than on any other home. And then we get called back after everybody's walked through it. Same with the painting guys. So, we always look at that on the back end type situation, but drywall is just not sexy. I mean, we don't have a website. I'm just going to post pictures of sanded
You
walls.
know what? I've never actually. It's funny. I'm really into branding and marketing. I guess I've never even thought to check. So Minnesota Custom Drywall does not have a
We
website.
do not. I've been challenged by my partners to get one done. I have never seen the value in having a website for drywall. It's word of mouth industry. I mean, you're going to go on the website and look at some sanded or painted walls that look good, because obviously no one's going to put up a bad
Here's your
one.
marketing pitch. I think you have a 2 or 3 page, really bright colored, really great graphics. So you've got a good logo, just simple colors, bright. But then you don't have to do just that. You've built gorgeous multi-million-dollar homes,
Yeah.
and obviously you have different tiers, right? You do production. So you do some production homes too.
We do.
So why not have like 2 tabs, custom home and whatever. And you could show some of my homes on your website.
I could.
You could show some of the other high-end builders around their homes, because you do them all. And then you could also have the track, and you've got like 2 different platforms. Meet the people. I actually completely disagree with you.
Most
Your
people do
partners are
disagree.
right. I
Yeah,
think
most people do.
But I mean, obviously, it also depends too. I mean, you've obviously grown a business way better than I have in terms of scale, all while not having a website. So maybe you're onto something.
I think our industry, good news travels slow and bad news travels like a wildfire. And we're like stock. I mean, all of a sudden, this company, man, they are great for 9 months. And then all of a sudden, they have 2 jobs that go south, and everybody hears about it.
This is probably, I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I think it's a good segue both for the audience and for those that obviously think about drywall the way I phrased it. A lot of people think that way. When I've worked early on in my career, I had one drywaller for a long time, kind of a solo operation. He had hangers, he just did taping, and it was great.
Yep.
We got too big for our operation for what he could handle, and we started bouncing around. I actually don't even know how we first started using you or who we used in that interim. And anyway, we got to a certain point where it's like, I'm listening to my project managers, and of course I'm picky too, especially when we went to flat ceilings, level 5 finishes, the natural light. I love what you shared about the bigger windows being a contributing factor, which is absolutely true. But I finally was just like, I'm so fed up with drywall. And I always appreciated your sales. You and I get along, but that doesn't mean that, like, maybe in the field, I mean, Randy is not doing my drywall, even though you could. I'm not building your house, even though I also can't build your house. You at least could if you wanted. So I got to the point where I'm like, because you would get to a walkthrough and you would ask the painter, and they said it was the drywall guy.
Yep.
And the drywall guy would say, no, it's the painter. So I'm like, you guys have a painting division.
We do.
Well, and so I'm like, fine, we're going to have drywall and painting be the same. Then I never have to worry about them painting questions or asking questions. Well, it turns out you still have 2 different crew, even though they're separate companies within your company, and they still somewhat do that anyway.
Yep.
And so it didn't really solve my problem for me. So I'm like, you know what? I like Randy as a person. I've got to go see what else is out there. And you handled it really classily. You're like, I'm sorry to see you go. I wish you the best. And, we hope you come back, basically. So I went and tried a few, and guess what I found out? The drywall community, it just, my level of expectations of what I wanted, it's kind of the same anywhere. And I would rather have a relationship with, if I call you, I know you're going to call me back. If I have an issue, I know you'll deal with it. We're not always going to see eye to eye on every single thing, but that's life. I don't see eye to eye with my wife, and we're still married. And anyway, I guess where I'm going with this is, like, to me, having a relationship where someone responds and shows up and is willing to look you in the eye and say, this works, this is reasonable, that's just basically a human relationship to work through it. That is what I built my company on. That's what I want to build my company on. And that is how I want to go through life. And so after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going back to Minnesota Custom Drywall and Randy specifically because we have a relationship. And it just speaks again, it reaffirmed me again, even though I knew this, of how important relationships. And I've had to do that a couple times in my career. I did that once with my excavator, and I was gone for a couple years. I came back, and I'm like, Troy, I love you, buddy. We got to keep working together, And so understanding that people are in different growth cycles, including ourselves, and being not only patient with those that you have a relationship with, but sometimes being patient with yourself as you're kind of going through this process. Like, is it me? Is it him? Oh, it's the industry. Okay, well, then I'd rather just have this relationship that we were building a successful company around anyway.
Right. I think at the size that we're at, I'd call a mid-level drywall and painting company. There's some bigger boys that do about double our revenue, and that's kind of pretty much the top there. And then you got your sole proprietors, the guys that they do the hanging, taping, spraying, sanding. And those guys in the sole proprietor industry are pretty darn good at what they do, but you run into scheduling issues and you run into time. Usually they can still do pretty good pricing, but You might earmark them for a house, but they need 6 weeks. And we need 2.5. They can't start when you needed them to. They need 2 weeks before they can even start. And so Mark's here building a house going, I don't have 8 weeks for drywall, you know? So there's some balance there in the construction and the building industry that, we got to keep progress moving as well.
How do you differentiate yourself from the other drywallers? I know my experience, but I'm guessing I'm not the only one that has had that experience. Why do people, as a business owner, why do people keep coming back to you individually? And at some point, if you sell the company, we'll talk about this maybe later, but what does you're a young man, so who knows how long you get go this for. But the point of it is like, if you take away the key person, like, do you have the relationship that you and I have? Do you have that with most builders? Are you the main point of contact or not?
With probably 3/4 of them.
So a lot.
Yeah.
So if you were to leave, what do you think would happen to those relationships?
Whoever would come in, I would have to help bridge those relationships, and hopefully that the new person would end up developing the same type of bonds that I currently have. I think that, to what you kind of touched base on, I think that the reason that we were able to experience the growth that we did, and I didn't recognize again at the time, I tend to always recognize things in hindsight, right? Because maybe I'm just not as perceptive as others, but I called you back. I showed up. I found a solution. I owned my part of that problem. People don't do that as often as I thought they did. You're submitting a bid. Hey, Mark, I'll have it to you by Friday. Well, if I submit it Monday, I can't even follow through on my own terms. How am I going to follow through on what terms you set for the job completion? Those were things that I just thought were natural, that people just did, but people don't. And the one thing I find fascinating is how much people are willing to try and say it's not their issue. I think in every scenario, you have a part in it, and it might be small, but you got some ownership in the result or where we're at in this project, and you could have some humility, take some time to look back on the course of events, what actions you took and didn't take, and try to ask yourself, what could I do different the next time that this comes around in order to not have this outcome that I've had? And that's what I talk about when I say I've been kicked in the nuts, right? So I wanted to learn so I didn't get kicked again. And I don't think people take the time to reflect on, that's called the mistakes or the learning opportunities, because I like positive words.
Learning opportunity.
I've shown up on a job site with you, and one of your jobs, we got a big problem. And I'm like, nope, you have an opportunity.
Right.
It
totally resets your frame of mind. It's great advice.
Yeah, because I think too, people, when they call you back for callbacks, touch-ups, or things like that, they're expecting an argument. So if you can come in with a smile on your face, be positive, discuss what happened, what you can do about it, be solution-oriented, people don't expect that. And I think that's also been a key to our success, is that we show up and usually we have a smile on our face, and how can we help?
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive, the software for builders that automates draws, budgets, and bookkeeping with AI. For over a year now, I've been partnered with Adaptive, and they've just been an amazing game changer in terms of efficiency in our time and all our bookkeeping. From the time we get an invoice, we import it into their system. The AI codes it, cost codes it, job codes it. All we have to do is review it, pass it through the people internally in the office, all digitally, and then it gets approved and paid all via ACH. It's becoming extremely fast and saving us countless hours a day and a week. When it comes to draws, all of our budgets now are set in Adaptive as well. So now when we cost code against the draws, we can do our change orders, and then with a click of a button, we can submit these draws to our title companies or to our homeowners for faster payment. If you're looking to save time, and if you're looking to be accurate, I highly recommend Adaptive. Additionally, if you'd like to listen to one of their founders share the story of Adaptive, you can listen to episode number 15 on the Curious Builder podcast. I mean, it is kind of crazy how just being likable. I don't know. Do you think being likable is a skill? Do you think it's a trait? I think you're a likable person. How hard do you think you have to practice to be likable. I've never thought about this before, because and again, just because you're likable and you do crappy work doesn't mean doesn't mean you're going to do their job, right? You still have to be competent. But like, I have a trade partner where, they are Mr. Grouchy Pants, and they're just not enjoyable to be around because they're so grouchy. And like, like someone else, maybe they don't even do it. You still have to do the work. You still have to be competent. But man, all things being equal, you're going to pick someone who's positive or someone who's grouchy?
Positive. You're going to do business with someone that you like and that you trust. And I jokingly like to tell people when I first meet them, I trust you. I just have no faith in you. And what I mean by that, you get a sense of trust usually when you meet somebody. But that faith or that's built over time. It's built through experience. I tell you, I'll be there at Tuesday at 9:00. I actually showed up. I'll tell you, we'll get this done before Monday morning when your painters show up. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what I told you on Wednesday. But I found a solution. So Monday morning rolled up and it was done.
You're putting coins in the meter of faith. I like in this example, because I agree. I think even if it starts with the sales process, I'm sure builders, myself, have probably been guilty of this over the years. I love communication, so I try to do a good job with it in the terms of, like, to your point, I'll call you Thursday with a whatever. You call a month, or just do what you say and say what you're going to do.
Right.
And it's fine to say, you know what, I'm sorry, the next 2 weeks, I can't actually fit this in. I could be there at 2. I think it's okay to own our story and just say, but then whatever date you set, to your point, make sure that you're abiding by your own rules. I've often used it with my own employees that I've stopped giving them deadlines, because my deadline doesn't seem to really work for them and anyway. So I usually in a meeting will say, when is it reasonable for you to be done with this task? And I'll wait for them to give me an answer.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head there. That I think a lot of people don't do is bring the customer or the person with the experience or the person doing it into the conversation. And I think too many times that someone will overcommit, they'll be done, but they haven't talked to the guy that's actually doing the work. And he's like, I can't be there. And all of a sudden, because you didn't bring all the parties into the conversation, you now got a mess on your hands. I try and tell my job soups and job managers, bring the job soups into those conversations. Tell them that, look, I got a good taping crew. Can you let it sit for 3 days? Where's your schedule at here? I got a good squad too I could put in there, but the guys I want are 3 days out. Have them help make those decisions. And I think we get anxiety over trying to keep our customer happy. And there's a balance there with just communication and honesty. And, if I got a really good crew that can interact great with your job soup and I don't even need to check up on because that's the crew I want too.
I mean, think about this line. You're like, you're having your dinner. You'd be like, I can bring your steak. It's still bloody and not cooked. Or you can wait 4 minutes and I'll bring you it just like you like it cooked. Okay, I can wait 4 more minutes.
Right. I mean, sure, there's occasion where you're like, no, I need it now. Maybe, you're closing or something. But usually
that's great advice.
Balance there.
I think, and obviously it has to be honest too. But like the whole point is like, sometimes they don't need to know everything, but just understand like who's going to argue like, hey, it's like a relief pitcher. If you want the best closer, well, he needs an extra day of rest. And so if you want him, then you're going to have to bring him in one day later.
Yep.
Or we can try the rookie who's never thrown a baseball before. Which one do you want?
Well, the thing that we just ran into here this fall again is no builders like to put heat in their house until all of a sudden the sheetrock's out. And what I found through experience is that wood from your framing is still wet. So we come in, sheetrock it, you put the heat on, and then I come tape 2 days later, right?
Yeah, I bet the humidity is outstanding in there.
The house looks pretty nice once it's primed. But come about this time of the year, 6 weeks later, all of a sudden those studs have started to shrink back and they're pulling the screws in with them. And now there's screw pops all over the place. And the builder's like, what's going on? I'm like, I told you we needed to let it sit, or the manager didn't say anything, right? And that's, again, where that communication comes in. You need proper site conditions as well in order to get a proper outcome. So
interesting. What, from the business standpoint, what do you see as kind of the next, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like, for the drywall company? What excites you?
What excites me, if I'm honest, is finding a guy to help take over my role. I am looking to find a sales guy, an estimator. My current estimator is looking to retire on August 1st. So that kind of put that wheel in motion. I'm also excited, some of the guys that have been with us for so long, to continue to watch them grow and to move up in the company. our greatest success with managers has been from promoting from within, and taking the time to educate and train them. And if I'm honest, I didn't recognize that earlier on. We'd hire guys from the outside that had management experience, and it generally didn't work out. It was the guys that had been around a long time that.
Was it, I love this topic. Were you able to walk me through how you incentivize them? Because one of the next hires that I think I would like is to find someone out of school or not even in school, just someone that's got the drive. I mean, I would love to find a young Randy Jonell, in his young 20s and have him come work with me at some point because I don't want to build forever. I mean, I love what I do and I love my clients. I love our craft and, I love the podcast and all the things that does. But, growing that people up, I was always kind of hired, A players, if you want, brought them in, but they always end up being shorter. It's 1 year, 4 years, 5 years, but it's not like multi-decade. How have you been able to maintain, how have you been able to find, and how have you been able to maintain kind of this growth structure? Is it different for every person? Or do you have kind of a prescriptive path, call it the golden handcuffs, right? Where it's like, once they're in, you have this trajectory.
No, it's not golden handcuffs. And you give me too much credit that I thought it all the way through. You know what I mean?
Okay. What did Jonell and Randy and Paul come up with that has been able to keep these people around?
I think one of the things is treating them with respect. One of the things that, and I still do to this day, I say, this is my partner, or Joey, who's coming into your service work. It's not a master-slave relationship with me. It's a partnership. And I think that not all employers treat their employees as well as they should. You wouldn't be where you're at without the employees that you have. And I think some people might take that for granted. I know I have at times. But it's also, like I said, treating them with respect, giving them a congratulations or an attaboy. How often we don't get validation for things that we do. And, I'm a guy, but I still like validation. I still like to be told, hey, thanks a lot for pulling through. I get more phone calls on stuff going wrong. It's so rare to get a phone call on something that went well. And that means so much to me when that happens, because they went out of their way to recognize that.
Or even if someone is to comment about one of your people.
Right.
Right. I mean, because it's almost paternal in that sense, right? Like someone says, hey, so-and-so did an amazing job. I just want to tell you, as another owner to another owner, like he went above and beyond,
usually,
right?
Mark, you're not calling me and saying, Randy, you did an awesome job on this bid. I really like the font you use. Yes, it's usually they're calling about an employee that you had and some service work they did or the extra mile they went for a homeowner.
Yeah.
And then you got to give them attaboys too to your guys. And the other thing I think that we have done a very good job on is flexibility with time off. A lot of our guys like hunting season, and that causes scheduling issues on our end that we need to work through, but we give them the time off. If that's what their passion is, you need to allow time for that. You can't drop the hammer and say, we really need you. This project's got to get done, because quite frankly, that project's still going to be there when they get done from deer hunting.
Piggybacking a little bit about that earlier question about how in general, and again, it's not meant to be a downer on the drywall industry, but it seems like it's a fairly prevalent thing in the sense that no one is bragging about how great their drywall is. How do you foster craftsmanship and pride in your work? Because one of the things that is strongest in the building trades, regardless of, builder, designer, architect, wood floor installer, tile installer, drywall, it seems like the people that are attracted to the industry love seeing progress. There's very few industries like in 1 or 2 days, you can have an entire house. Like it went from framed, you can see right to the outside, or well, not the outside because you're sheeting on it, but you can see, to studs to, I've just sheetrocked this entire house. And like some of your crews come in, it's amazing how fast they can go. I guess where I'm going with this is how do you instill that sense of pride in their work when, as a general rule, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but drywall is not seen as it doesn't seem like it's esteemed very highly among the other trades. Is that accurate?
I don't think it is. I think we get, I was going to say shat on. I don't know if I can say that, but we get squeezed for time. And then if stuff goes wrong, it's like the quality. The industry as a whole has become a subcontractor industry. And the way that it's really gone is there's a couple of what we call brokers. one by the name of Alex. He controls about 22 vans of tapers. So you can be working with drywall company A and switch to drywall company B, and you get the same subs on all your jobs. So what we've tried to do, and unfortunately I got a little bit of a bad rap for it, but if we found a really good crew, I try to get them to go exclusive. I like to know who's going to be on the job site. I like to know that what they're going to do. And when you're using this broker, and that is the industry more or less as a whole.
Is that true in painting too?
Yes, but what I found more in painting is that there seems to be more allegiance to one company. So they might have 6 subcontractor crews, but they've always worked for the same guy. Where in the drywall, another guy named Brandon, he controls 120 hangers or something. That's a lot of hanging power, So he moves through a lot of sheets a day. If you build that exclusive relationship with that subcontractor, they work for you day in and day out. And what we've kind of done to help make sure that happens is not only take care of them, but we pay them a little bit more. We pay them every single Friday. And at least with the tapers, I bring all the taping product on site, so they're not stopping to pick it up every morning and haul it in.
I like this. This is customer service to your own trade partners. Within, right?
Yeah, you could look at it that way.
I mean, that's what you're doing. You're doing customer service. It's like and I can see why they'd be loyal there, because you're making their job easier.
Yep.
You care about them enough to take care of some of these things. And even if it's somewhat self-serving, I mean, you're still doing it for the overall ease of the project. You're also, I mean, I'm fine with that, right? Like, it'd be no different than one of our site managers having the house clean before the trade. That's always a common complaint, right? Like they'll come in to do, your rough ends, and is the house clean? Or maybe one rough end isn't clean. And so anyway, one thing we can do as a builder, and we all fail at this. I don't know a single builder that's amazing at this. Some are better than others, but I love going to a job site when it's really clean. Guess what? So do all the people.
Uh-huh.
However, in the priority list of all the things, that's usually one of the lowest priorities, unfortunately, but it has a big impact. So anyway, I love what you're doing here, to sort of foster this relationship with.
Again, it just breaks down to taking care of the guys that are taking care of you, because at the end of the day, you're nothing without them. And it's you recognizing that. And it also, at least on the taping side, part of the reason I originally started doing that was to ensure that the right mud products were being used. You found with subcontractors, they would just buy the one type of mud and apply all the joint tapes and corner beads. And that is the coating mud, because they didn't want to buy the other box of mud that's heavier and a little bit more expensive. And then they got to carry 2 products. So by me having that on the job site, I ensured that the mud with a ton of glue is used for all the joint tapes and corner beads. And then the guys are like, we love having all the material here. And it's like, well, yeah, I can do that on every job then.
Right.
So
that's good. I like that. Well, you mentioned to it earlier, and only if you're comfortable speaking about it, you had mentioned that your recovery story has a large part to do with your business and just your story. Can you speak a little bit about that journey, or how that impacts your life even today?
Yeah, I was the kid that was always picked on in school. I was the kid that never fit in. I was the kid that had low self-esteem. And I ended up finding that instead of people laughing at me, people started laughing with me. And I started with pot and whatnot at about 16. And it ended up progressing through pretty much all the realm of the drugs. And by the age of 21, it was booze. And by 25, I was drinking a liter of vodka a day. And things were not going well, relationship-wise, business-wise, self-worth-wise. And I finally kind of I broke down. I broke, right? And so I went off to camp for 30 days. And what I didn't realize was how much my life would start to change that day. I'm about 14 and a half years into recovery. My perspective on life generally is joyful. Things aren't necessarily problems, they're opportunities. I'm responsible for work, but the outcome's in God's hands, not mine. And the acceptance to that has really helped me in my business and personal relationship. I remember I had a crew leave a sliding glass door open, rainstorm came in, all the hardwood floors got, swelled up. And I remember my wife going, "How are you so calm?" And I'm like, well, it's 8:00 at night. It's out in Afton. I can't do anything about it. Like, I'll go out there tomorrow and we'll see what we can do. And that's that like acceptance. Like I can get all mad, hot and heavy, right? But it doesn't change where we're at. And it's not that that doesn't happen occasionally, but I got a good support group that helps analyze my thoughts, if I could put it that way. I still attend meetings. I still have a sponsor. And I talk through what's going on. And then they give me honest feedback. I remember once I was complaining about builders. I was complaining about the finance guys. I was complaining about the insurance companies. And I remember this very good friend of mine looked at me and goes, there's a common thread here. And a light bulb came on. The common thread was me, my acceptance, and it's like, it's a wonderful thing now that I'm in it. I'll put it that way.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that can benefit from that. And I like the era that we're in, meaning I feel like it's so much more not only encouraged or not acceptable, but encouraged for people to share their story, because so many people experience different levels of that awakening and that change in their life. And I guess one of the questions I'd have for you, so you went into your 30-day camp or
spin drive.
Yeah, spin. At what point did you kind of wake up? Was it kind of an evolution? Was it kind of like an aha moment, or like how, like you said, kind of at the end, you kind of like, wow. And when did you have this? When did you start seeing the light open up, where you no longer felt like this heavy burden? Yeah, I'd just love to hear about how that process switched for you.
It's a process, right? Like there's no burning bush. It's experience, right? Day after day. At least for myself, it came on slow. And what I ended up recognizing is my problem was me. My solution was alcohol and drugs, if that makes sense. Yep. So you remove the solution, alcohol and drugs, I still have the problem. And what that broke down was to going through a book with a sponsor and working the 12 steps of their AA recovery program. And if you make it through those 12 steps, you don't come out the same person that you went in as. Your view on life changes dramatically. And I sponsor guys. I see it with them. It's a pretty powerful thing to watch someone's entire psyche, their value systems change. And for some people, it's 6 months. For some guys, it's 3, 4, 5 years, right? Some guys, they keep slipping and they keep coming back. It's when you truly surrender and you keep working at it, that's when you can get the reward. But going through those 12 steps, at least from my experience, is one of the hardest things that you will do in your life. That self-appraisal and the honest and raw self-look at who you are, which is not who you want to be, at least in my case. And then to start making those decisions and choices to change. And what I mean by that, like an action item would be like, some people get road rage. And it's like, they cut me off and and so maybe I got road rage. But an action item would be to think, okay, pull that anger back. Think, what if they're on their way to the hospital because their kid or wife got into an accident?
That is a great trick of mind or frame set there.
So, but that requires work because you got to pull a thought back and then redirect it. And if you do that enough time, your actual thought process starts to change. You start to look at things in a more positive light. I'm generally described as a pretty positive person. That I did through the program and God's help. Like I was.
Were you not positive before?
I was a very angry person.
Really?
Yeah.
I could not even see a glimmer of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. How has it changed? Because at this time, were you married at the time that you went through all of this?
Yeah, I just gotten married in November, and by July the following year, I was at camp.
So no children at that point?
No children.
How has now you're a dad of
2 boys, 8 and 10-year-old.
8 and 10-year-old. How is that kind of now where you're at now? They never saw, the Randy 1.0. They've never experienced 2.0. How does that change your, outlook, or how do you think about things as you're raising your kids now?
I would love to tell you that my kids never get yelled at because I have so much patience with them. But the reality is nobody can get under your skin like your kids, man. I mean, you don't control them, and they have their own mind, their own thought process, and your job is to help guide them, I guess. I I had my son the other day tell me that, Dad, you just need to stop talking. I don't see how you're helping here. And it's like, what? That was the 10-year-old. I think what you just try and do is what all parents do. You just try and imprint a value system on your children and try to raise them the best that you can. I think at least in this area where we live in, they're somewhat spoiled. They don't, what they see is normal. Other kids with sport courts, nice cars, always food on the table. My kids have a favorite airline company. They're 8 and 10. They shouldn't have even, I wasn't on a plane till like I was 12.
This is hilarious.
So
what is their favorite airline?
Delta? Yeah. Yeah. They don't like Sun Country.
Oh, funny.
But
it's usually going to Mexico or somewhere warm at least.
Right. But that's my point. Like
right.
that's us as a parents, but it's also, we want to enjoy our lives and give our children good lives as well. But it's kind of interesting. Like they just don't know the other side. And then 8 and 10, they're not going to.
Do you involve them at all with the family business stuff? Like as they get older, do you ever bring them to the work, or how much do you guys talk about work at home? How have you navigated sort of, kind of sharing what you do from a business owner, also with your family?
Our children, they were brought on job sites a lot more probably when they were a little bit younger. I'm grateful in the last year and a half, I've developed a really good work-life balance by giving up responsibilities and stuff. But when you're growing a business and you're excited about it, stuff's got to get done. And give you an example, we went out to dinner. My children were probably like 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, and we had a babysitter, and the babysitter put the kids to bed. And I remember my older son, he looked at the babysitter and goes, "Now, are you going to the office now?" Because when we put our kids to bed, we instantly went back down to the office and we worked all night. I mean, you worked. And so they saw probably the extreme early on, where you weren't around. And that's a sacrifice, again, talking about growing a business, that I didn't recognize. Like I didn't recognize the toll it would take on a marriage and on the relationship with my kids, the amount of hours I worked, and I'm going to say the delusion of me saying I'm doing this for us. While I am doing it for us, I also recognized later on I had an insatiable appetite to succeed. And it wouldn't have mattered what people said or did, I wasn't stopping. And eventually I hit a point of content that allowed me to pull back a little bit. But during those years of explosive growth, I wasn't stopping. And that takes a huge toll on your personal relationships.
I mean, you've experienced a number of careers within a careers. I mean, from your path here, and I'd like to ask this question because, none of us can actually go back, but, if you could go back, I mean, are there key points that you would change, or you recognize that is your story and all of those things really, you couldn't be who you are without how they happened? I mean, there's nothing really you could do, because you kind of alluded to it earlier in the conversation about, you're not supposed to touch a hot pan, but yet you sort of have to touch it anyway.
Right.
Do you think is there anything a Randy now could tell a younger Randy that would have had any effect, or that was just kind of your path?
Years ago, my ego would have told you that that's my path, and I'm glad that I took it. As I've gotten a little older, maybe a little bit wiser, I would tell my younger self that you don't have to do it that fast. You could have slowed down. You could have been more present at home and with your kids. You didn't have to do it in 5 years. You could have taken 10. But at that time, if you would have told me that, I wouldn't have listened. I know that much. But the right move would have been to have struck a much better balance, because, again, what it took out of the personal relationship is taking a long time to get back. So,
how in other business owners, I mean, networking groups within drywallers, there's been a lot, and we're involved a lot with getting a lot of builders together. And networking groups that way. Have you collaborated a lot with other business owners in your career in terms of trying to understand what other people have done, or have you kept it pretty tight with, your wife and with Paul, kind of as you've kind of just struck it on your own accord, if you will?
And for people that know me, I'm not exactly closed and tight, if that makes sense. I'm pretty open. Mm-hmm. So yes, Paul and Jolene were, I would jokingly say, the brains behind everything. but I talked to everybody, and I would tell them what's going on in our business, and they would tell me what's going on in their business. And through that collaboration of other people's experiences and stuff, you can take away, like, if you're going to hire a guy, what exactly are you hiring him for? This was more of a managerial hire, but what roles and responsibilities are he taking from you? How many hours a week is that saving you? With the hours that he's saving you, where are you then going to apply those hours? Those are things that, like, Randy doesn't think of. He needed advice in order to think those things through for the growth that we then experienced.
But you were always sort of out there asking those questions.
Yeah.
Kind of probing other people, what worked for you, what doesn't work for you.
I was probing them and how it was going, and I think since I'm usually pretty open, people end up being pretty open with me, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a little bit like being vulnerable, right? When you are willing to open yourself up and say, even like you mentioned, going onto a job site and saying, how can we help? Or I used to always say, a soft answer turneth away wrath. Say your story. When you lead with softness, you're usually going to de-escalate the situation.
Yep.
I mean, very rarely does it work out well when both people start punching each other. Very rarely does it end that well.
Yeah.
Anyway, it seems like that was kind of just by being open-minded and open-mouthed.
Open-mouthed would be a great way to explain it. I mean, I talk to everybody, and I would say as I've gotten older, I've become more reserved than I was as the younger Randy. I've become more introverted, I think, versus the extroverted.
What do you think led to that?
I'm not exactly sure. Part of it might be that, I honestly, I don't know. I was going to try and come up with something, but I'm feeling like I'm getting more recharged when I'm at home or when it's quiet than I'm getting recharged by the interactions with everybody else. But there is really nothing that really can charge you like a good site meeting or a good walkthrough. I mean, I have fun at those usually.
Right.
So yeah, those can be quite fun too, though.
Well, as we kind of wind down your time here on the podcast, I just want to touch briefly because you're my crypto guy. So you have a huge, more than a hobby. I mean, you're very into the crypto, blockchain, all of that.
Yep.
We won't have enough time to kind of go into all your knowledge, but I mean, I think you speak on it. Have you been on podcasts about talking about crypto as well?
I have not. No.
I feel like every time I talk to you, you're like reading something or you're very, very in the pulse. What led you to crypto? And I guess what is your level of interest now and kind of going forward?
What led me to crypto was the news stories on Bitcoin back in late 2020, started in 2021. I did, 20, 30, 40. Randy invested perfectly starting right about 50. And then she tanked in the course of 2 years down to 16. So it worked out really well. But the other component is I ended up getting into what they call decentralized finance, DeFi. And a lot of people have heard of companies like FTX, Sam Bankman that went bankrupt, or Coinbase, and those are centralized trading facilities. And so let's call you a normie, Mark, you'll trade on a centralized exchange because if there's a problem, there's a phone number for you to call. But DeFi in the crypto world is where you take that money and you bring it into an unregulated, anonymous world of trading where there is nobody to call if there's an issue. And we trade shit coins is what they're called. Coins that it might be the MD Williams coin that launches.
Oh, we need a Curious Builder coin. Why not?
We can do a Curious Builder coin, launch it, provide some liquidity to it, have people trade it. And usually a lot of those are dead within about 24 to 72 hours, to be honest with you. But I ended up doing very well in beginning part of 2021. And when you have made a good chunk of money quickly, you're like, well, what else is here? And you just I dove down a rabbit hole. And the thing in 2021, nobody knew what this stuff was. You didn't know where to go. I mean, it'd be literally like I described it as trying to learn another language because the terminology, the acronyms, it's completely foreign and you had to self-teach yourself. And if I wasn't at MCD at that time, unfortunately, I was doing and learning crypto.
How you had mentioned earlier on that you have an addictive personality,
Yes.
as we have well established. Knowing your past and knowing yourself at this point, you know yourself much better than you did 20 years ago. What kind of safeguards or what kind of parameters have you put in place
That's
to
a
sort
great
of?
question.
Because I imagine your wife, being the accountant, is
Yep.
probably got to be thinking like, "Oh boy, this is replacing drugs. This is replacing
Correct.
whatever addiction." How do you regulate that, knowing that you also have a good talent for it as well?
As far as from the financial aspect, with crypto, you can make a ton of money fast and you can lose a ton of money fast. And you spoke to I'm older now. What I've learned is that the ability to be honest with yourself protects yourself. So if I have some good wins in the crypto world, I tend to take that money and I send it back to the bank account because I tend to just keep losing or gambling, let's say, and then you get a win, so you send some back. I've been fortunate and never had to replace my initial investment. I've always been playing what we call house money at this point. But it's the addictive personality is certainly a concern. And I hope at some point I can find a good balance. If I'm honest, I haven't found it today. I mean, it in a nutshell, it went alcohol to cigars to building a business to crypto, and now it's fitness.
Now it's running.
Yeah, now it's running and working out. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're making good, healthy life decisions. I mean, you might die on a mountain while you're where I'm getting you to push. Well, let's end on that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about running. I mean, I kind of my own journey. I've talked a little bit about it, but anyway, I did my first ultra marathon last year, and I called you to come. I had to do what did we do? I think I had to do like a 21-mile day at Highland, and I think you said, "Well, I'll come join you for 2," and you loved it. I'm like, dude, you got to get off the road and get on the trail. And now this summer, I know you're doing Grandma's Marathon. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a sign up for my first official marathon. I ran 2 last August on my own just for fun.
By the way, to the audience, this is my favorite story. So after we went run, I don't think I was the reason because you run regularly anyway, just for, on your own. But then after we ran, you're like, hey, I can just keep running. I don't have to go fast. And you, like a week later, you're like, hey, Mark, guess what I did yesterday? I'm
4
like,
days. Yeah.
4 days later, you're like, I just decided to go run a marathon on my own. And I was like, yes.
That was
awesome.
Believe it or not, was an accident. So I typically was only running an hour every other day. And then I went running with you, Mark, and I ended up running 14.2, 14.3 miles. And that was a Saturday morning. And I remember thinking later on Saturday, my body doesn't hurt.
Because we were on trail.
Yeah. But my legs don't hurt. They're not sore. And if you've seen the movie Inception, there's nothing more powerful than a thought. And all of a sudden, Randy got this thought. He's like, well, maybe I could run a marathon. Because this was the second time this whole year I've ran past 10 miles. Like, let's just go for it, right? And so on Wednesday, I went for what I call the proof of concept run, which is like 16, 18 miles. Let's just see how far we can go. Well, I got to about the 18-mile mark, and I ended up in Carson's Bay there in Deep Haven. And I should have gone home. But my brain said, well, if you run to Excelsior first to the McDonald's and back, because that's 7 miles from the McDonald's to my house, you'll hit the marathon mark. So I'm like, well, let's do it. And so I ended up bonking out, which is about 2 miles from home. And what bonking out is where you completely depleted all the glucose in your body. I knew nothing about this because, again, I didn't read.
Oh, man, this is amazing. This is so much better than doing a race. The fact that you did it and didn't know it was going to happen is way cooler.
Yeah. So I describe it as like you can't rotate your legs anymore. So
what, did you just walk home, or did you call your wife, or did you recover and then run?
So I did the recover and run. So you'd walk for a couple minutes and then you'd run as far as you could. And I assume that that's like my body peeling off the fat from me and putting the glucose back in my bloodstream. Like, and then I'd deplete it.
You have no body fat, by the way. So I don't know where you were getting this from.
But so I succeeded in that, but my phone died and I wanted the little trophy that showed the map. So I made a decision 10 days later, I would run around Lake Minnetonka again, and I ended up doing it. And that was my first official 26.2 miles in 3 hours and 52 minutes.
Attaboy.
So
I was pretty stoked when you called me. I was like, now I know you're hooked anyway, but now you're really hooked. How are you going to do any trail races?
So you have given me a link to some. The first one, I believe, is in the early part of April, and I will be on spring break in Costa Rica.
Good choice.
Then the second one is July, and I, of course, am at a house cabin. So I can sign up for the fall ones that you have submitted, but I do plan to still run with you at Highland or any other trails because on average, doing 10 miles plus every other day right now.
Good for you. That's awesome, man. Well, I'll see you up at my wife's running grandma, so I'll be up there cheering you on as well.
Nice.
Plus, we'll obviously get some trail. This is my off season, so playing basketball and tennis right now, but trail running soon enough. Well, where can our listeners can't find you on your website because you don't have one? So if people are trying to get a hold of you, is it LinkedIn? How are people getting a hold of you?
LinkedIn, you can. Also, my contact information, I'm sure, will be on the webpage. Feel free to reach out and ask any questions or
on our webpage.
Well, I'm assuming the Curious Builder.
Okay, well, I like how that the way to get a hold of you is on someone else's webpage.
Isn't that perfect? I mean, I can plug my phone number, but
yep. Yeah. You can call me if you want to get a hold of Minnesota Custom Drive. It's referral only. Make it very exclusive.
Yes, this is an exclusive club.
I like it. Well, let's work on your website, and we'll talk about that when we go running. Thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.